You're listening to the Christian Indie Artists and Songwriters Podcast, the place where faith, music, and life intersect. We exist to help Christian indie artists and songwriters just like you get songs heard. Hey, I'm here with my friends coming to us live from the Chicago area for the band Graveyards and Gardens. Could you guys introduce yourselves? That way they get to know you and just how you guys doing tonight.
Hi, my name is Aaron Andries.
My name is Jeremy Yap.
And my name is Tim May.
Awesome. Well, I was just telling the guys before we started recording here, I was just listening to their music and you guys are awesome. So you got a fan in me for sure. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited to hear your story and how it kind of all came together. So like I said, too, you feel free to answer individually, collectively, however you want. But how did you guys kind of get started in the music in the first place? Where did that initial fire kind of start?
Yeah, so I grew up a PK. So I spent a lot of time in church, learning how to play pretty much whatever was in the sanctuary. As I was going through a few years of community college, I wanted to continue to grow in my music and in ministry. And I had a friend at the time that worked at our alma mater, which is Judson University. That's where we all met. And so born and raised in Washington, D.C., moved from the East Coast to the Chicagoland area, and I've been here ever since, and that's where we started the band together. So, but yeah, most of my cultivation as a musician started off in church, playing in different bands and writing and recording, even before getting to G, and it has been a crazy ride.
For me, I grew up as the son of a music teacher, so that was a very interesting experience growing up with classical music for most of my life, and then high school, when I was attending church and youth group, they didn't have a bassist on a weekend. So then I ended up getting slotted in, had no idea what I was doing. And I ended up going to college originally for graphic design. Wasn't so much of what I wanted to do for my degree and my career, and ended up becoming a music business major. And then randomly met Aaron in one of my classes and realized that we had a bunch of connections going back probably like a decade. More than that we didn't even know, not having classes together, but really started to become more of an artist individually, but then together as a group during college and then post that. So just a lot of bass and a lot of really, I think most of my musicianship is really, my passion for it stems from my family, but a lot of where I've gotten to like cut my teeth and just get better and just spend a lot of my time serving has been through church.
This is Tim. For me, I think like these guys, grew up playing in the church, like worship, youth group, whatever. That was kind of my first introduction to live music and playing live music. Started out playing in youth group bands and stuff. Horrible, awful youth group bands.
Are there any good youth group bands?
I remember our youth pastor at the time, he like recorded our first practice together and then like played it like at the end of the school year or something. And it was just, we were still awful, but it was at least a little bit better. And so I came to Judson too, and that's where I met Aaron and Jeremy, and they had already started the band and had some other people that were in it and then had, moved on and stuff like that. And they asked if I want to play guitar, and what guitar player doesn't want to play guitar in a band with his friends? So that's how that started.
That's awesome. So you guys kind of all met in college. So like, what's the story? I always curious, like even down to like the band name and like, how did you guys kind of get started playing together? And then like, what was the collective vision and focus, like how did it all begin? And then take us through any stories like along the way. I love to hear those kind of things.
Originally when the band started off, it was actually, we got asked to play a weekend at a church in like the suburbs of like actual downtown Chicago. So it was Aaron and I and two of our other friends. We weren't even a band yet, and they just asked us to come and lead worship. So we got together, and like we'd known each other already from being a part of a on-campus ministry that did worship nights every single Tuesday. So we, we're in the same friend circles and everything like that. And so we ended up playing this serving at this church on a weekend, and it went great. We had a lot of fun. And then I had the random great idea to just make a Facebook page without anyone's permission, without asking anybody. And we got the name from, there was a book that our guitarist at the time was reading in, I think it was Old Testament class?
New Testament
class.
Shadow of the Galilean,
was the name of the book. The name Graveyards to Gardens came up. I was like, oh, that sounds like a cool band name. So then I just made the page, and then I added their names to it. And this was without, asking permission to do this. I was just like, you know what? We'll play together. So are we a band? I guess technically we are. So I guess, so that's how the name came up and how at least the Facebook page started. Because originally we were playing like covers.
Yeah, for a while there, we were just a Kings of Leon cover band. Okay. Just doing little events across campus, and then eventually we started writing our own tunes. And so it's been this thing where we did covers for a little bit and then started doing our own covers, and then it seemed like we were leading worship on campus a lot.
Yeah.
Those early years, and eventually word of mouth, you get to churches and different events through recommendations from friends or family, and small festivals to celebrate recovery type things, and pretty much anyone who was willing to have us. And Tim, I'm not sure if you remember this. I remember when we were thinking about asking you to start playing with us, Jeremy and I had talked about it for a while, because we were both huge fans of the band that Tim was in at the time with his family. He was in a band called Cortland. And then I remember I was like, man, this dude's really good at guitar. And we went to a show, and I had one of my best friends, and he's with me. He's like, who's that guy on electric? I was like, oh, that's Tim May. He's like, he's awesome. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Definitely didn't know this story.
Yeah. And so Jeremy and I were talking about it. Jeremy's like, I'm just going to ask him. So we didn't want to rob him.
The rest is history.
Yeah, we didn't want to rob him from his band. But yeah, I didn't know that you didn't know that. Now you know.
Now you know.
Now I know. I'm blushing, Aaron. Stop.
Yeah, so that's kind of how we got started in a nutshell.
So it kind of came together. So at first, did you have like a band meeting where you decided like, hey, you know, we do worship, or we're going to kind of be like a worship night band, or did you kind of have a more like your focus as far as your songwriting style? Was it more like CCM focus? Was it more worship focus? Was it almost more like, you know, mainstream focus? What was that kind of conversation like as you guys were kind of formulating?
Yeah, I think right away it was a little bit of everything, actually. I think we were just so excited to play music. Like for a lot of us, we just wanted to play in a band. So it was kind of whatever was available to us, whether that was worship or writing our own stuff, which we slowly transitioned into that as we kind of found our footing. But eventually, just because of our surroundings and who we were going to school with, for a long time, we were angling to be a CCM band, and had dreams and aspirations of moving to Nashville and doing that sort of thing. And just kind of how life goes, things kind of changed and transitioned. And for a while there, we were trying to find our footing and our way with what we wanted to do and what we wanted to sound like. And so it's been quite the journey. And in some ways, we kind of feel like we're just finding our way even now, just this past 2020, because we've had so much time to think and reflect.
Man, that's great. Yeah, because, you know, listening back to the songs I've listened to that you have up on Spotify, you know, it has like a CCM vibe, but also it has that worship vibe too. So I was kind of curious of like, was it intentional, or is it more, you know, in the writing room too? And also I'd love to know, you know, how do you guys write your songs? Do you guys bring ideas to practice, or do you write together? How does that process typically go?
Yeah, especially that first project we did, that was really intentional, the more CCM / worship kind of a sound, because that was a lot of what we were doing then. And we've also kind of had the flexibility to kind of explore as creatives as we learned. But in terms of the songwriting process, it usually starts with me, evolved even over the years. I'll have an idea, and I'll, you know, voice memo it, try to puzzle together some lyrics, and hopefully, you know, there's some cohesion there.
And you'll send it to us and be like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So, especially how we're writing now, I'm always bouncing stuff off of them. It's like, hey, is this cool? Is this too depressing? Is it too, you know, whatever? And I think I love this season that we're in because it feels the most collaborative we've ever been. In fact, Run, our most recent single, that was just a riff Jeremy was playing on an Instagram story.
Yeah.
And I remember texting him, I'm like, bro, what is this?
And I was like, it's just a random loop that I decided to make.
I was like, okay, so text the group chat, next week studio, we're working this out. And yeah, we went to the studio, started to work it out, and got kind of comfortable with the instrumental. And I just went home and just took a Sunday afternoon to kind of start hashing out lyrics. And through this season of quarantine, a lot of our writing's just kind of been reflective of a lot of this year, but a lot of our past too, and just really kind of reflecting on our own stories and our own experiences, and just trying to be as honest and transparent as we possibly can.
So with that, you know, with 2020, obviously, like, wow, what happened, right? So like you guys, you said you had some time to think. Like, How do you think that, well, first of all, how did it affect you? Because, you know, obviously you probably didn't play as many shows unless you did like the virtual thing. And two, like, how did it kind of like set you up for this new year now that you have, I know that everything is still not, you know, the way it was yet at this point, but, you know, like as far as your planning or mindset or direction, like how did 2020 kind of change Graveyards to Gardens?
I feel like this year gave us a lot of opportunity, I think individually first, to kind of, I think, go over our own individual stories of just like, what has the year been like for us individually in terms of like, what are we gaining? What are we losing? Because everyone's, you know, lost something this year. I've definitely felt like the opportunity, and I think the invitation that we got from Jesus, honestly, in this year was to actually just kind of rest and look back. And I think it's easy, especially being like an indie artist, to kind of compare yourself a lot, like the imposter syndrome thing of like, we're looking at all these other bands or other friends and it's like, look at what they're doing, and like and you look back at what you've done and you kind of question like, have we done enough? Have we not done enough? You know, what's the quality that we've been able to bring? And I think it's been a very reflective season of, I think, just looking over our journey as a band, and what we've been able to bring. And I think it's really set us up well for this upcoming year. That time that we got this year was, I honestly feel, very invaluable to what's coming up this year for all of us.
Yeah, it was very necessary, but definitely a gut punch at first, not just as a band, but individually. Like it's been a tough year for everyone, but man, it was a brutal year for us individually too. And like we had some really exciting shows lined up and some tours with some really awesome friends. And, you know, we had songs ready to, you know, start tracking for singles and, you know, even potential album type stuff. And obviously all of that went away. But I've been saying this all year and kind of clinging to it. Like, I think God has taken this opportunity through the pandemic and everything that's been happening just to kind of really invest in ourselves, our relationship with him, and the overflow of that always comes up in the band. And whether that's in our writing, our relationship with each other, and the decisions that we hope to make in the future, and we'll see what 2021 brings. But it starts there. It's just with the work that we do in ourselves and the relationships with ourselves and the relationship with the Lord.
Before we started recording, you guys mentioned that you had some, like personally, some like role changes with, we didn't really get into it there, but if you guys want to go into that at all with as far as like transitioning out of roles and stuff, like that's obviously a major factor, because at the end of the day, like your life in their band, you know, they all affect each other greatly, you know? So like, what did that look like for you guys, as much as you'll, you know, want to share, and then how that affected the band as well? Yeah,
I definitely, for me, this was a year where I got sort of the dream job that I wanted, and on staff at a church, being like a video design photo person. And then about 6 months later, I lost my job. Right in the middle of also getting engaged. And then about a month after I got news that I was losing my job, I got married. So this has been the craziest, call it a year of transitions for sure, of like, ups and downs. And like, it's definitely been hard. And I think really like these guys, like this family that I have here with Aaron and Tim, like they stood my wedding and like have been there for me to process, you know, when I got the job and celebrating with me. And then also when I lost my job too. I think all the changes have really helped bring a better sense for me of kind of feeling like really motivated to do things in this upcoming year. And I'm also super thankful to my wife too, of like knowing that we're capable of like just moving towards a direction where we're getting to share awesome art for people. And I think I don't know, there's just something about this year with all the transition, even though it's been hard, that I feel even more loved by everyone around me and loved by God through all of it. And again, like the overflow piece that Aaron had just kind of touched on, it definitely feels like that. Like I feel like my bucket isn't half empty.
Yeah, for me, I was working at a church for nearly 5 years, and I was commuting an hour and some change to this church for the duration that I was there. And a year ago, had the opportunity to come on full time. And so I moved states, and I didn't quite sure how the band thing was going to work, but we were trusting the Lord. And I was still, before, lockdown and all that stuff, I was trying to make it down to Elgin as much as I can so we can write, and honestly just to hang out, just catch up and stuff. And going through the process and, into quarantine, it was this weird thing. It just really felt like God was saying, I think you need to go back. And there were some hard lessons, and also being in quarantine, I didn't realize the weight of loneliness in that time. I was living by myself, and I mean, I'm a professional introvert, so I love my space and love my time, but I think you don't really understand the uniqueness and the necessity of community when you don't have the same access to it like you did prior. And I felt that on a very deep level. Fortunately, in this band, we're super close. Like, even if we never strum a chord ever again, like, this relationship is super tight. And fortunately, I had my family also on the East Coast supporting me through all that. And so it was just very uncharted territory for me. And like the things that I find life and give life to me, we couldn't do it. I don't know how many times this year I've had dreams of us playing shows and waking up just to realize, oh, we're still in the pandemic. And that was a really tough transition, leaving the security of a job in a community of people that I've grown to love over so many years, and but trusting that the Lord had bigger and better plans, and ultimately knowing that was the decision I needed to make for myself. I knew I needed to be back here, and so that's still shaping out and what that looks like. But yeah, it's still evolving, and God's still moving.
Yeah, I think for me, this year, very grateful to have my job. I was working from home a lot, and I'm one of the oldest guys here. I won't say how old, but so I'm married. I got kids, and it was a really unique year and opportunity to just like invest in my family, and which was great. Like, being with my kids, and trying to, they're younger, so they didn't really get what was happening, which was great, and trying to kind of shield them and protect them and their innocence from all that stuff. So yeah, it was challenging. There was added stress with all of that, but at the same time, there were some really beautiful things that came out of that, and getting to invest in them.
Yeah, I think something, because obviously we all dealt with it and dealing with it in ways, but something I've noticed too, and this is probably true for you guys, I'm sure, is that, I feel like even though it's, I don't know, but the best songs kind of come out of painful situations, like, I don't know what it is. I know that when I first started writing music, when I was a teenager, and that was 20 years ago, the songs they didn't mean anything. They're just like random words I thought were cool that were like Pete Wentz from Fall Out Boy. I was like, yes, this makes no sense to anyone, but it's cool to me, you know? But like, now that I've experienced, honestly, some not great things along the way, I feel like my songs lyrics have so much more depth and meaning, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, like, it's just where you are in life, but I feel like when you've experienced some things, when you've, had your knees in the dirt in the valley, for one, you appreciate, the climb more because you know where you've come from. And two, you always kind of go back. I mean, the valley is always there, and we always end up there again. I'm slow and steady wins the race guy. I like the slow incline. I'm good with that. I love what you said, the pro introvert. That's definitely me too. Like, I was like, yeah, cool. So you mean social distancing? That sounds kind of cool, but then after a while you're like, wait a minute, I think I need to be around people because this is not right. So there's a lot of Zoom calls. But, I feel like, I'm not trying to be the eternal optimist here, but like, I'm so excited to hear like the music that was birthed and will be birthed out of last year, because like, there was so much struggle and so much pain and so much uncertainty, and we all had to face it. We couldn't hide from it. We couldn't like bury it and just like move on with our lives. Like, we all were like literally almost trapped by it in a way. So like, I feel like the songs and the things God's going to do through that, and I'm sure through you guys and what you guys are doing is going to be like incredible and so powerful. And I mean, only time will tell, but I feel like last year will be a pivotal move I mean, I'm believing a pivotal move for Christian artists to get stuff out there and really impact the world and say like, hey, even when life gets difficult, like there's a better way. And these are songs that will help hopefully bring you peace and comfort through wherever, you find yourself. So have you guys written, like we talked about, Run is like the latest release, but like, have you guys been writing a ton of songs recently that are kind of getting ready for the new year?
Yeah, actually we were hoping to do more last year. Obviously that didn't happen, but we've been quietly working on an album throughout this whole year, because we had the time and space to do it. But we've had the album title since we were recording the last project, like actually
2 years ago.
I remember we're in the middle of recording and I walked to Jeremy and was like, this is not going to make a ton of sense, but I know what the next record should be. And we didn't have any songs in mind, and yet God knew that 2 years later we're going to be in a global pandemic. And honestly, if we hadn't been in this season, we wouldn't have the songs that we have now.
The title makes so much sense now.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're ready to give the title away just yet, but it's been some of our most honest songwriting, and even for me, who's doing more of the lyric side of things. What I've been learning in my songwriting, I've kind of come up with a rule for myself. If it hits me in the gut, and if it's very difficult to write, and even if it feels a little too revealing, then I have to commit to that lyric. Because I think what's in that lyric, even if it's a little wonky at first, you can always tighten that up later if need be. But I think the essence of whatever's in there needs to be said. And it's usually the things that make me feel the most uncomfortable, and maybe like, oh man, do I want people to know how I really feel about this? I'm like, no, it probably feels necessary to write in that moment. And this year or 2020 rather, just really, like, there was a lot of that. There was kind of no escaping what was happening, because we were kind of, at home alone with our thoughts. And so there was a lot of committing to those tough lyrics, and it's meant so much to us in our writing, and we're really hoping that translates to other people as they listen eventually, as we begin to release songs and things like that.
Man, that's awesome. And yeah, it's like my wife had this thing on our fridge for a while, and it was I've shared this before, but it's like a circle, and inside the circle it said comfort zone. And then the outside of the circle, there was like a dot, like far up on the page, and it said where the magic happens. And it's like that nervousness that you feel, that's you being outside of your comfort zone. And that's where you're getting into uncertain waters. And like, man, what better place to be as an artist who gets to communicate in this way that will bring, people like, wow, I've thought that before, but never know how to say it. And like, because you're being obedient to those thoughts and feelings that, in my opinion, Holy Spirit's putting in you or reminding you of, like, those are exactly the kind of things that God needs to be said. And he's using you in the band as a vessel for that. So man, I'm definitely excited for these new songs and revealing the title and all that stuff. Just amazing how God is putting all that in work. And to me, that just shows me that, like, you guys are here for a reason and for, this specific purpose and to communicate in this specific way. I mean, he gave you a title 2 years ago before any of this stuff even happened. And now that's going to come to fruition, maybe this year, maybe next year, whenever it might be. Right. But obviously, like, he needs you guys to be doing what you're doing for that, or else, he chose you for this moment in time. So I think that's amazing. So, with that in mind, I always like to ask people, and I would love it if you guys have, your own things, but what's a piece of advice that you'd give to your younger selves to encourage you along the journey, because I think there's so much value in looking back as to who we are today, because everything we've done has made us who we are today. So what's some advice that you give to your younger self and to the listeners?
Man, there's a lot I wish I could tell to my younger self, whether music related or not. One thing I think would have been helpful for me, especially growing up, because I've always wrestled with the tension of maybe always feeling like an outsider in some ways, and not really understanding the gift that can be in certain contexts. I'd probably tell myself, and for all the other songwriters out there, young and old, don't be afraid or ashamed of who you are. there's only one of you, and God has uniquely created you. And I think your voice is necessary. And I think it's important because only you have your story, and that story hasn't been told. And I think that's value. Something with younger artists, when I work with them, it's like, hey, you should write. You have this gift that seems pretty obvious to me and all the friends around you, and your story's valid and your story's important. And so have confidence in your story and who you are, even in your awkwardness, because I'm awkward too. I think the world needs to hear that, because I think it's so important that you share it, even if it is a little tough.
I definitely tell my younger self it's okay to learn at your own speed, and it's okay to grow. Maybe not how you wish you were going to, but you kind of need to just kind of bloom where you've been planted. And that regardless of how good you are with how much theory you know, or with how good your ear is, like, you just are where you are, and that's okay. And that there's always an opportunity to grow.
I would say for myself, I think we're all, sounds like we're all introverts here. So I know for myself, being introverted and being, laid back, like, it's always been easy for me to kind of let things kind of pass by and not always take advantage of things. So I know, when I was younger, I wish just done stuff, just taking a step, whatever that was, to try something. Cause there's a lot of times where, like, fear or whatever, let that get the best of me. All the biggest and greatest, whatever people that have achieved things, whatever, they're all people that failed a lot of times before they got it right. And so, I just know for my personality, I wish that was something I took more to heart, and that's something I'm still learning to do. Something I'm still learning to step out and just try something or do something and give it my best. And if it works, cool. And if not, that's cool too.
And one other thing, because I think this is important too. Sorry, just keep writing. Just do it. Like, even if the song isn't great, you can always write another song. There's so much inspiration in life. There's so much to gather. Just and that's how I approach songwriting even now. It's like, even if I don't like it, I was like, I can always write another song.
Yeah. And I think, like, as a kid, when I would write, be like, oh, this sucks, and I just stop. And it's like, no, like, keep writing. It's going to take 500 songs before you get a good one or something. You know what I mean? So that
Ed Sheeran, I don't know if you guys have seen The Songwriter, his documentary, but I think it was documenting the process of Divide, the album Divide. And I mean, it's really good. I mean, of course it's not good, but it's really good. And I mean, just getting to see that guy create, it just seems to flow out of him. But he said, there's one part that really stuck out to me, and it's like, he says songwriting is like a water pump. At first it's just mud, but you have to keep pumping it. And eventually you'll get some clear water, but there's still a lot of mud, still a lot of muck. He didn't say these words that I'm saying, but you can imagine. Right. But then eventually, though, only through that repetition do you get the clean, good water. So you got to write 1,000 crappy songs. But the thing is, and what always drives me is, like, it's totally worth it. Yep. Because if it takes me 1,000 songs to write that song, then man, thank you for those 1,000 songs that weren't that song, because we got there, so I love that advice. And I think that is, like, so valuable for anybody in any creative pursuit, but in this context, songwriting, like, just keep doing it. Same thing. I look at it with production, it's like a lot of guys will go up to, they're like, it's all in the reps.
Yep.
The more you do it, the better you get, and you feel like, this is dumb, I'll never get to be there. But if you look back, like, a year ago, it's like, wow, I never thought I'd be here. So like, what's it look like in a year from now? It's like, only find out by doing it. So yeah, I think that's really important. I always like to ask people, like, how can people connect with you? What's the best way, that, like, social media, where do you guys hang out? Because, I'm going to put all this stuff in the link. I'll link your Spotify and everything, but, like, just like so they can hear from you, like, what's the best way to connect with you guys?
Yeah, we are on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We have a YouTube channel that we're hoping to fill up a little bit more this year with some content, and just Instagram Graveyards to Gardens, Facebook Graveyards to Gardens. Same thing with YouTube. That's kind of where we're at now, and we're on all DSPs except for LimeWire, because that's illegal now. I guess it has been for a while, so don't look us up there. Yeah. But yeah, so wherever you listen to music and on social media, also just, we're really big on stories. If any of our songs have ever struck you in a way, please share that with us. And for any songwriter or an artist that you're a fan of, those stories go such a long way in terms of encouragement. And yeah, if there's something that's connected with you, let us know. And we want to be a part of what you're doing and how we interact with each other as well.
That's awesome. Cool. And before we go, I always like to pray. So I'm going to pray for you guys. God, thank you so much for Aaron and for Tim and for Jeremy. Thank you so much for the calling on their lives for this awesome band, Graveyards and to Gardens. And just to thank you for encouraging them through this season and everything, all the way from the college days into now. And I just pray inspiration and blessing, and that they can just feel your guidance in everything that they do, God. And as opportunities come, Lord, they just see you in that, Lord, and they can share their gifts and their talents that you've given them to do that. And collectively, Lord, and this title for this record that you gave them so long ago, God, when that comes to fruition, they'll just completely know, like, this is what you've called them to. This is exactly where they need to be, God, and that everything they do as they put their hand to the plow, God, that you'll just bless everything that they do, God, and every person that comes across their music and just their personalities and their brotherhood, Lord, that they can just see you in that, God, and it all points back to you and gives you glory through all of it, God. I just so expectant. I just feel an anointing over them and these guys and their music, Lord. So I just pray that everything that they can imagine, just blow their expectations out of the water, God, as you pour out abundant favor into their music and into their lives, God. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
We want to help reach as many Christian indie artists and songwriters as possible, and one way we can do that is with your help. So if you could take a minute and leave us a review on iTunes, that would be so appreciated. This is how the iTunes algorithm will push this content out to more and more Christian indie artists and songwriters. So like I said, if you could just take a couple seconds, leave us a review, that would be so awesome, means so much to us, and we would really appreciate it.